Guess you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit, and now here's your host, Rich Barris.
Another day, another scandal for the FBI. These people are totally out of control. That's what we're going to talk about today. Also, Drew Bourne from Michigan will join us. He'll talk about the future of Michigan and leadership. They have some elections over there. Delegates have a decision to make. And he'll be joining us at 12:30. Also, real quick, on Monday, we'll have the former president's advisor, top advisor, Liz Harrington on to talk more about the corruption at the FBI, among other things, the race for the presidency again, and also how just completely out of control these people are. Let's just roll this because before we even get into the hearing, let's roll this because I'm going to tell you exactly what they're doing. And then we're going to go take a little history lesson again about the FBI.
So this officially is underway. They are looking for any potential other classified documents. Pence thinks that he has turned over all that he had, but this is an FBI check. So we will keep you posted on how that all goes.
What this is the FBI trying to find dirt on someone who's running for president, because that is what the FBI has done since Hoover was appointed the acting director. This is what they do. They never were going to prosecute Hillary Clinton because they thought she was going to win. They were just going to keep all the dirt they have on her to keep her in check. Because God forbid you ever come after Hoover's FBI and they better not have a file on you. This has been the game the FBI has been playing since its inception. This is why it always grows and never shrinks. This is why nobody ever gets punished at the FBI. The hearing yesterday was an abomination. Well, the hearing itself was just fine. It's just that what you heard from the hearing was awful. We have a bunch of clips. I'm not even sure I'm going to get through them all. A couple from Elise Stefanik. But first and foremost, I want to play this one because, you know, there are those of us who've been around for a long time. We knew a bunch of people who worked for the FBI, and you always hear people like Sean Hannity say, the rank and file, it's very different. The rank and file doesn't approve of the leadership at Main Justice. That's not really true. Yes, there are rank and file people who were good, but many of them that I knew, that others that I know, they're out. They've been gone. Because under Barack Obama, how bad it really got, it has always been political. It has always been political. But how just brazen they've become and how open they are about it. All right? Nobody, outside of big media even, but they're in total cahoots with each other. Nobody has interjected in elections and stopped progress in this country. It's hard to point to another organization, department, bureau, whatever you want to call it. Nobody has done more damage to progress in this country than the FBI. This is why nothing ever changes. Hope and change until they find out you were a cokehead who used to sling 8 balls in college. Then all of a sudden you don't come at them anymore. Let's roll with this and then we'll come back. We'll talk more about it because it has always been this way. It has always been this way. Let's roll this.
Participating in the investigations of myriad criminal cases. The Marjorie Stoneman Douglas high school shooting in Parkland, Florida. The 2017 Fort Lauderdale airport shooting. The Caesar Sayoc pipe bomb case. Multi-million-dollar Ponzi schemes. Crimes on the high seas, bank robberies, murders for hire, sexual assaults, extortions, and more. Yes, it was physically taxing and emotionally jarring. But I believed I was making an impactful difference. And every day I woke up and I embraced being an FBI special agent until things changed. Over the course of my 12+ years, the FBI's trajectory has transformed. On Bureau, the Bureau's mission remained the same, but its priorities and governing principles shifted dramatically. The FBI became politically weaponized, starting from the top in Washington and trickling down to the field offices. Although FBI employees have their First Amendment rights, they are not at the liberty to allow their personal political views or preferences to determine their course of action or inaction in any investigation. Lady Justice must remain blind. Those that do not uphold these responsibilities cause a negative ripple effect throughout the agency in the field. It's as if there became two FBIs. Americans see this, and it is destroying the Bureau's credibility, causing Americans to lose faith in the agency and therefore the hardworking and highly ethical agents who still do the heavy lifting and pursue noble cases. It makes it very difficult for agents to do their job when the FBI loses the
All right, so Nicole Parker is just the latest in a long list of FBI agents who have been, put out, even attempted to be destroyed for clashing with the Bureau's culture of corruption, which is what it is and has always been at the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This started a long time ago. It has never been true. This image of the clean-cut, educated G-man who's going to chase down the bad guys with their superior morals and wits has always been an image that was carefully cultivated by J. Edgar Hoover, and it has never been true. They drove Melvin Purvis literally into the ground after he was the guy who chased Babyface Nelson. He was the guy who got John Dillinger, by all means necessary, by the way. Be good, be better until it's time not to be better. Until whatever it takes to get your man. And why did they destroy Melvin Purvis? Because Hoover was a selfish, arrogant, greedy piece of garbage. Because people were starting to see Melvin Purvis in the light that he always wanted to be seen in, even though he didn't do a damn thing. He didn't lift a finger. Comic book-like portrayals of Superman-like portrayals in comic books, it was always a scam, a propaganda scam. And we brought this up the other day because we're going to get into the targeting of Catholics and who these people have actually used as sources. The lack of credibility the FBI uses as sources to target everyday citizens who get in the way of the state. It's outrageous, but again, it's not new. During Prohibition, Elliot Ness and his hand-picked team of Treasury agents, they were kept separate from Hoover's FBI on purpose because the FBI was corrupt. They didn't call Elliot Ness the Untouchables because he wasn't in danger and his team weren't in danger chasing Al Capone and other people. Al Capone's obviously the biggie. They were called the Untouchables because of their integrity, which stood in stark contrast to Hoover's FBI, which was dirty and has always been dirty because power corrupts. There's a couple from Elise Stefanik I want to play, but in this clip, she's basically talking about how much this has reached critical mass. And at this point, who really is meddling in elections, right? What is the FBI's mission anymore? Because thank you to the national treasure that is Rand Paul, we know the FBI hasn't stopped a single terror attack since 9/11. Not a real big one. They can't point to a single case where using these expanded powers, they have to spy on all of us, has led to stopping an actual bad guy. This is what they do with their time.
Because this is not just about the Twitter files, which folks are focused on because of the news it made. It's about a systemic rot in the culture and the politicization of the leadership of the FBI, and it needs to be rooted out. Let's take a step back. Let's look at the targeting illegally of parents who wanted to stand up for their kids at school board meetings. On September 29, 2021, the National School Boards Association sent a letter to Joe Biden equating parents at school board meetings to domestic terrorists. And on October 4th, Attorney General Merrick Garland issued a memorandum to the FBI and U.S. attorneys that the department would use federal enforcement tools to target and prosecute these parents. Do you consider parents as domestic terrorists?
I do not consider parents as domestic terrorists. No, I do not.
No, and neither do the American people. But there's more to this story. It goes back further than that initial letter on September 29th, because the letter didn't happen organically. It was solicited. It was solicited by the White House and by the Secretary of Education. Essentially, the Biden administration laid the predicate for which it used to justify illegally targeting the American people, targeting these parents.
That's right. Okay. And with that in mind, all right, let's look also, right, Waco. I mean, people, you're all over this. David Koresh came to the door unarmed, attempting to defuse the situation. The ATF opened fire on him. Right after, by the way, they murdered a Green Beret, his dog, and everyone else in that place at Ruby Ridge. So they were looking for a win. They wanted a win. They wanted to stop. They were literally looking for a group that they could do this to so they could get a win in the public eye. Why? Because back then, the 94 Republican Revolution, it was seriously being considered. The ATF was on the chopping block. The Department of Defense, of Justice in general, the FBI, they were seriously on the chopping block. Not to get rid of the FBI, but actually to remove some of their funding, obviously. The ATF, though, they were on the chopping block. So they went searching for people to do this to. You may not like what David Koresh stood for. And yes, grown man having sexual relations with young girls because he thinks he's the prophet and he's supposed to spread his seed everywhere is demented. But he has a right to practice the religion he has a right to practice. You want to arrest the guy? Arrest him for sleeping with little girls. Don't open fire on unarmed people that come to the door. Doesn't matter he has weapons in the compound. So what? It's called the Second Amendment. He's allowed to have those weapons. They killed an unarmed old man when they opened fire in that initial wave. This has been going on a long time. But we're well beyond groups like the Branch Davidians, folks. Now, we're into Catholics. Now Catholics are banned. You might have remembered the Atlantic article some months back, branding the rosary. And I remember talking to Jack Posobiec about this. Branding the rosary, an extremist symbol. The FBI literally cites the Atlantic article as a justification for targeting these people. They also cite ad nauseum the Southern Poverty Law Center, the SPLC, which has been dubbed not credible years ago by the FBI. So I don't know why they're even citing them, which was at the beginning of the Biden administration, a report we did. You may remember it was through the when January 6th was still fresh in everybody's minds, and the military was trying to purge some of these just conservatives, mainstream conservatives. And the docs were leaked to us, and we published them. And we showed you on the show. They were not talking about Nazi groups only, anywhere the lightning bolts. Oh, no. This was basically anyone, if there was a member, this was the Marine, those docs came from Marines. If there was anyone who was citing support for Donald Trump on Facebook, boy, you're an extremist. Who, by the way, the FBI refused to title in those documents because they're back and forth from the Justice Department to the military, and they're calling him Donald John Trump. They're refusing to even call him President Trump or President Donald Trump. It's just right, of course. I mean, of course, it tells you everything you need to know, right? So here's this now. This is Steve Cortez tweeted it the other day. They're literally opening the door to targeting any other Christian faith. With this report, he warned, the SPLC claims it does not brand Christian organizations, quote, hate groups, unquote, merely because they oppose same-sex. But many of its accusations boil down to disagreements on LGBT issues. The SPLC branded the Ruth Institute an anti-LGBT hate group in part, they say, because its founder, Jennifer Roback Morris, called homosexual activity, quote, intrinsically disordered, unquote. And you may think, oh, God, that sounds hard. It's a direct quote from the Catechism of the Catholic Church. So the Catholic Church now is got, because the needs of the state have changed. The Catholic Church must change doctrine that's thousands of years old. And we've seen them do it in an effort to appease the state. We have. Not just same-sex marriage, but abortion. You have a rogue pope. Let's be honest. I mean, rogue is the word to use for this guy because he doesn't follow doctrine. I mean, he's broken with doctrine on many things. So what are Catholics to do? Yeah, and it started with the ATF at Waco. It ended with the FBI. They took over for the ATF, just because I see some chats going on. They took over for the FBI, for the ATF after a certain time period, and then it became that long standoff. Eventually, they thought David Koresh, or they thought David Koresh was playing them, that he was never going to write out what essentially was like a gospel he was writing about himself. So they decided to go in. Even though there was a media blackout, the FBI refused to allow the Branch Davidians to get their story across to the public. The FBI did not want you and everyone else to hear the Branch Davidian side of the story, because then you would have heard the truth, which is that they opened fire on people who were unarmed at the time. David Koresh went to the door. Stop. You want to talk about hands up, don't shoot? That's an actual instance when it really happened. They champion all this crap, Michael Brown, this and that. Never happened. Fiction. Total fiction. However, David Koresh got a bullet in his side when he went to the door with his hands up. And he said, there are women and children and elderly in here. And they just opened fire. The FBI got tired of waiting, you see. So they just decided to burn the place down to the ground. You know, women were charred, and you could see them holding their children as they all burned to death like people at Pompeii. That's what the FBI does.
They need to find a purpose for themselves before they're recognized.
That's it. They're looking for purposes for themselves. And all through all of this, by the way, because I'm no damn fan of Mike Pence, but this is what they're doing right now. They're looking for something to get Mike Pence by his balls, just in case he wins the presidency. That's what they're doing. And they're using these classified this crap over classified docs as a pretext. Just like they did with President Trump. They're not going in there to see if he has something mislabeled. They're looking for dirt because they're afraid he's going to win. That has been the shtick. That's their grift. That has been the FBI grift for decades and decades and decades and decades and decades. And every time a new president was elected who may have had an agenda, JFK couldn't stand any of these people, all right? Every time there was a new one, the cross-dresser would get up, go across town with his file. I don't like Roosevelt. You know your wife is a homosexual, right? Mm-hmm. You know we have pictures of your wife, Mr. President, Mr. Roosevelt. This is what they do. MLK gets an award, right? Can't have that. We're going to send tapes of you having an affair to your wife. Why? Because Hoover didn't want to see him accept the award. He tried blackmailing MLK into not taking the award. MLK said, I'm not going to, you know what? I'm not going to like it when I get home, but I'm doing it anyway.
He couldn't be bullied.
And then he ended up with a bullet in his head. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? Malcolm X, same thing. Even though it is possible that the Nation of Islam killed Malcolm X. I mean, that's possible. But, I mean, they're awfully good scapegoat, aren't they? Let's hear another one from Elise Stefanik before we do some more of this hearing. Funny thing was said at that hearing, by the way. Even though we just got done talking about all this military documents that labeled these people as domestic terrorists. That's what they labeled this: domestic extremists, domestic terrorists. That's what it said. We can't have ranks of ranks filled of domestic terrorists in our Marine Corps. Here are the signs to look out for them. And then something funny was mentioned yesterday at the hearing. But let's listen to one more Stefani clip, because I really do think she had a couple clips here that really nailed it.
The Twitter files are just the tip of the iceberg, because there's so much more. There was a corrupt revolving door at the highest levels between the FBI and Twitter. Look no further than Jim Baker, former general counsel at the FBI, who helped unlawfully investigate Donald Trump in the 2016 election. Or look at Jim Comey's deputy chief of staff, who became the director of strategy at Twitter. Isn't it true, according to the Twitter files, that there were so many FBI officials who then went to work at Twitter that created their own Slack channel and crib sheet for onboarding? The Twitter files confirm that, correct?
Correct.
Are you aware, as the American people are aware, that according to polling, of the people that were made aware of the Hunter Biden laptop story, 53% would have changed their vote, including 61% of Democrats. This is the definition of election meddling, and it's the definition of election meddling by the FBI on behalf of Democrats, paid for by the U.S. taxpayers. It's collusion, it's corruption, and it's unconstitutional.
All right, here's something, because she gets into polling, as you well know from the Public Polling Project. When we polled the states, the Midwest states particularly, so key, so important: Minnesota, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, right? We went down the line and we asked people, are you aware of the stories surrounding the Biden family, Hunter Biden's laptop, right? And only about 70 to 75%, depending on the state, would say yes, they're aware of it. That doesn't account for how many actually believe the lies from the FBI and other intel community people who came together and said, this is Russian disinformation, right? So of the 70% who said they agree, they had heard about it, which stands in stark contrast to the 90 plus in 2016 who told us they knew about Clinton's emails. Nobody ever really believed that the Clinton email stuff was Russian disinformation. But in 2020, they did, because of all of these people who came together and said, in a nutshell, that this is fake. This is disinformation. I'm trying to find the money here. Where's the money? I need the money. Money. Here it is. The FBI paid Twitter $3.4 million of taxpayer money. It's your money to censor those stories. No wonder it only got 70 to 75%, including the Hunter Biden laptop story. 53%, she said, if they were made, would have changed their vote. I'm more concerned with how many actually heard this. That is election meddling, without a doubt. Just like they meddled in 16. If you're Hillary Clinton or you're a Clinton supporter, you should be as equally pissed off. You should. They were giving Hillary Clinton that old Comey adopted Hoover's tactics boy. No, that wink and nod. You get elected, Hillary. You know we got you. You better stay in line, Hillary. That's what Comey was doing. He wasn't making an attempt to let the American people know what she did. He thought there was no chance in hell that Donald Trump was going to win. Just like everybody else in Washington. And what did he say, actually? When asked under oath, how does it make you feel that you may have contributed to Trump winning with those tactics, with those little events, those stunts you put on the press conference, the statement at the last minute? He says, "Oh, it made me mildly nauseous." From an FBI director? But this is what Comey came up in. Robert Mueller is his mentor. Another crook. You can't make this stuff up. A man who thinks it's perfectly acceptable to let innocent men rot in jail for murders they didn't commit, so his crooked FBI agents don't take the fall for hanging out with Whitey Bulger. This agency, this bureau, has been corrupt and out of control for a very, very long time. I argue, folks, I really do. I submit to you. Do we need the FBI? What was the FBI's point? It was to chase the bandits, bank robbers like Babyface Nelson and John Dillinger around. That's what the point of the FBI was, to investigate across state lines, right? Why, by the way, who's hurt by the bank robberies, right? The Fed and their friends in the financial industry. Do we need them? Have they stopped anything? They didn't stop Parkland, which they should have, right? Another ball drop. They didn't stop the shooting at the Pulse nightclub, a real big ball drop. They should have seen that coming, considering the family ties. Hell, Pops is standing behind Hillary Clinton at a rally. It's not like they were under the radar, folks, with their views. The FBI should have seen that coming. Funny how, by the way, the FBI treats people who don't like homosexuality with one faith a lot different than they do with the Christian and Jewish faiths, don't they? It's extremism of the highest order if you're a Christian and you don't believe in same-sex marriage, or you don't believe, right? It's like extremism of the highest order, and you have to be labeled a domestic terrorist over it. But you cannot, like, homosexuality, be Muslim, gun down a bunch of people at a nightclub, and there's no 50-page report written up over it. Right. They don't want to coexist. Those bumper stickers are full of crap. Laura's always saying, you love those bumper stickers. Coexist. They're the only ones who don't want to coexist. But they couldn't stop Pulse because they were too busy chasing up telephone poles outside of Trump Tower. Because that's what they do with their time. They don't chase terrorists. They extort politicians. And they wage coups. And they interfere with elections. They don't stop things like San Bernardino. They don't stop Pulse nightclub events. They don't stop school shootings they had advanced knowledge of. They extort politicians. They serve at the pleasure of a certain political party. They prosecute their political enemies. Persecute and prosecute their political enemies. Give me this rank and file crap. Where was the goodness of the rank and file when they decided to launch an unbelievably corrupt investigation into the president-elect, which, by the way, we all know started long before that. You could hear the FBI on the other end of the line talking and interfering with the conversation while Don Smith is interviewing the then frontrunner of the Republican nomination, Donald Trump, on radio. It's, that happened a long, that started. Why did it start? Because he was now the front runner. And they got to find some kind of dirt on front runners. Because God forbid Donald Trump comes in here with a wrecking ball. Maybe he doesn't want to keep the FBI around anymore. Maybe he wants to cut a bunch of bureaus. Oh boy, we can't let that happen. Go rummage through the man's underwear drawer and make sure you find something. This agency's got to go. I'm serious. I don't see any point of having them. Can we not have? That's what I'm talking about. JFK, Nixon, the blackmail over the years. This is unbelievable. Nixon had the world at his feet. He was just reelected by a margin never seen. They decided he's got to go. JFK, he didn't play ball. His brains ended up on his wife's lap. Probably the work of their friends at the CIA. Folks, what the hell are we doing? You have the audacity to call ourselves a democracy? This is not a democracy. Wake up. Wake up. This is a cartelized system. This is run by powerful bureaucracies, powerful agencies in the administrative state. Their corrupt friends in the media help them out. They don't serve any role other than brainwashing people into believing lies. And by the way, I showed you that clip. We ran that clip on Wednesday with Darren Brown to show you. You know what this guy does? Hits me with a copyright strike. I tell you that it's a fascinating show. It's going to be off of Netflix in a couple of days. So if you got Netflix, watch it before, it expires. And this wipe hits me with a copyright strike. Free advertising, Darren. Jeez. But I get it. You're an atheist. You're probably left-wing and you don't like me. So you hit me with that. This is where coexist. You got a coexist sticker on your car, don't you? Don't you, Darren? I bet you do. You got a coexist sticker. By the way, while we're at it, what kind of a guy designs an experiment to see whether or not another human being will commit murder? You know what you did to the minds of those people? Only one guy didn't do it. Only one. And by the way, ladies, do you know who was most susceptible? The educated woman. It looks to be. She had no problem pushing that guy right off the roof. All of them. Both of them.
No, that one woman.
She was like, goodbye. Her name was Laura. She double pushed that guy. She made sure he went right off. An old man, you know. All right, let's take a second to bring on our guest. I don't want to keep him waiting too long. So you got a mess out in Michigan. There's no doubt about it. Democrats long in the Midwest have wanted vote by mail and to expand early voting, all of these things, and it never really took hold before COVID in 2020. It just didn't. The people of Pennsylvania, the people of Michigan, and even in Wisconsin. There was some in Ohio, but it never really took root in Pennsylvania or Michigan at all. And they were largely election day states. Now, because of the underperformance of Republicans in Michigan, they got what they wanted, which was basically attempting to make Michigan a permanent absentee ballot vote by mail state. Republicans out there are struggling, honestly, to figure out what they're going to do with leaders. We have one of them who's running, Drew Bourne, and I want to bring him on now because we have different takes on what the Michigan Republican Party needs to do to ensure that the party is competitive moving forward. And I know Drew, and I wanted to bring him on to talk to him about it today. Drew, thanks for coming on again, my friend. It's good to see you.
Absolutely, Rich. I appreciate it. It's been a few months.
It has. And, you know, before we get into what's going on now, I'd like your take on what happened in Michigan. So, I mean, it depends who you ask. But, you know, my pollster friend, Robert Cahaley, he'd tell you, you know, that he thought that these races, they were polling much closer. He thought they would, look, you know, be closer for the governor and among other races. And that, you know, that he thinks the abortion issue did hurt Republicans because you had a specific question that on, you know, to ask voters, and that was not the case in other states. I don't know that I buy that, Drew. I'm curious to see what your take is. I did always believe that Gretchen Whitmer was going to be one of, if not the hardest incumbent to take out. What's your take on this? I think money played a big role myself, but I'll let you speak.
There's a lot, and I don't think there's one specific answer. And actually, we're waiting on some other
Never
data
is.
to really figure out what actually happened. And we all have our ideas, you know. And I personally think that the abortion issue did what was an issue. If for some people, I mean, we had a 10% turnout of the youth. And as we all know that the youth vote, well, I think most of America now votes more with their heart than their brain in a lot of this in a lot of these situations. But when you get a 10% turnout of youth, and a lot of them are single issue voters, and a lot of them showed up for the abortion issue. Now, I think there was a very strong misconception about what that Proposal 3 bill actually was, because it's probably the most evil bill you've ever seen in your entire life. Not only does it include abortion, but I mean, it has it changes ages of statutory rape. I mean, transgender. I mean, it wasn't just a right for abortions. I mean, it literally made Michigan one of the most evil states in the country. But because abortion was an issue, or on the ballot, it turned out the youth in a huge way, and in a 10% swing, which I don't think a lot of people were expecting to show up. And the Democrats did a really good job of getting the youth out, you know, being on college campuses, getting them registered and getting them out to vote. I think that played a big part in it. So I talked to Congressman Bill Huizenga after the election, and actually I talked to him before the election. And when he did his initial polling, his original district before we got redistrict had like abortion at like a 9% issue. And with his new district, it was like a 30% issue, which is a huge number, like, you know, a huge number for swing, where all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, well, this is something we actually need to tackle. And as Republicans and Judeo-Christian, you know, conservatives, it should be a non-issue, right? I mean, if you are a single issue voter, it should just be split. And I think Tudor Dixon did a really good job of this. Listen, if you want abortion, vote for Whitmer. If you don't want abortion, vote for me. Let's actually talk about the real issues going on with our state, because frankly, abortion is one of the last things we need to be focusing on right now, because we have a lot bigger issues going on in the state.
Yeah, and I think too, because and you said something, it's never one thing. It's never one thing. When you look back, what happened? It's never a single, and I really can't stand the simplified or dumbed down Monday night quarterbacking. I can't, I always loathe that in politics, because, people are different. They're not, monolithic, or whatever the word is I'm looking for, stretching for here. They're not a single block of people that all think the same, have the same interests. So it's never that easy. I think ultimately, too, one of the things in Michigan that maybe neighboring, for instance, or close to neighboring Wisconsin didn't have is, Tim Michaels had a lot of money that he could spend on his own. You saw some people like next on the other side of you, Doug Mastriano, he didn't have money. In order to get or even answer attacks like the ones that were levied against Republicans, you need money, right? And I think that this is a bit of a reality check, or at least it should be a reality check for some people out there who think, maybe 2016 confused people. Donald Trump had universal name ID, also had his own money. He didn't spend a lot, but he just, he's Donald Trump. It's different, Drew. It's not like any candidate can impose this model. You need to have money to get your message out. And Trump was a master at playing the media. So he got all of this earned, free advertising through how the media was covering him. And on the abortion issue, he neutralized it in one debate. I mean, in one debate question. And when he turned to Hillary Clinton and basically just said, "You're a monster. You want to rip babies out of the womb up until the point they're born, Hillary. You're nasty. You're a nasty woman." And then he was even able to openly say, "If you elect me, I'm going to get rid of Roe v. Wade. I am," after that, because they didn't know what to do with him after he said that. But again, I think some people discount the importance of money. And I want to get your thoughts about that, because I think Democrats obviously raised a lot of money. They spent a lot of money. And that disparity, I hate to admit it, because I wish it wasn't the case. But it is the case. It's reality. You have to have money to compete. And I wish our system wasn't like that. But, I'm curious on your thoughts of this. But it is. That's the reality.
It is. And the Democrats have a lot more money than we do. And I talked to a lot of people, and I agree. And they all said, I think we came to the game too late. As you know, I was one of the first people to get behind Dixon. And it's not because her policies were so much better than any of the other candidates. It was because I thought that she had the best chance of beating Whitmer. And, I think most all conservative, Republicans are probably going to have very similar policies. Pro, right to life, keep your hands off our guns and everything else. And I think every single candidate was that way. But I thought she had the way, the ability to beat Whitmer the best out of all of them. And I think your polling showed that even. And the question, what we ran into with it is a lot of people came to the table to support her so late in the game that it was, she didn't have the money to combat the attacks that she was getting, and which is a problem. And I also think that if you are constantly just on the defense, you're losing, right? And I thought that
without a doubt,
we didn't do, and she didn't have the money to create an offense as well, right? It was, and media is expensive. The messaging in the media is very it takes money, and it takes millions and millions of dollars. Well, I don't know if you saw it, but there's a picture going around of Alexander Soros and Whitmer, 3 weeks ago. And, that just means millions more dollars are going to get pumped into Michigan to make sure that Michigan stays blue. I mean, they just changed their primaries. I mean, they're doing anything we possibly can to make sure that Michigan stays blue for years and years to come. And everyone's preaching money. And first off, I want to say that we have a fantastic pool of candidates running right now, but we need money. And if we, and some of them don't know, are not able to raise, they were not able to raise. And so, and the number one thing that we need to focus on is unity. But then if we don't have the money to, one, support our candidates, to run the party even. I mean, we have a huge debt in the party right now to begin with, and we got a tax bill coming up in March that we don't even have the money to pay. We're in trouble, and we're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, somebody actually asked about that, but I'll wait to ask about that question. They had a specific question for you on this, but also too, while you're doing this, kind of weave in, because you have your own race right now, basically. And I want you to tell people, what's going on and what's happening in Michigan right now, or what will in about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then why you're doing this.
So Michigan is an interesting state. We've historically always flip-flopped red, blue, red, blue, red, blue. And because of that, but the problem that we have is when we were red, the Republicans never got anything done. They didn't fight for our rights. They didn't fight for our election integrity.
Shocker.
When we knew we had problems, and there's a lot of people who are really fed up, including myself. And so just like we had in a primary with a very crowded primary field, we have a very crowded field of people trying to run the MIGOP. And between Christmas and New Year's, I was looking at, who was running, what's going on. And I was kind of disheartened by who I saw on there. I didn't see any strong. I saw some great people and people that I love and good people, but I didn't see a strong enough leader that can actually get done what the party needs to have happen. So I prayed about it a lot. I talked to my wife and she agreed. And I'm like, well, listen, it doesn't hurt for me to do anything but throw my hat in the ring. So I threw my hat in the ring under the premise of, 1, we need to unite the party. If we can't unite, we're never going to be able to raise any money. 2, we need to raise some money. And 3, have a plan to actually win. And that plan doesn't start in a year from now. That plan starts now, getting people out, getting voters registered, making sure that we are, whatever policies we can change with the Democratic governor and House, we need to do whatever we can to make sure that we are putting steps into place so we are successful in 2024. It's isolating the candidates the elected officials that we can swing from red to blue, or the precincts that we can flip from blue to red, making sure we hold the ones that we have a margin. And it's putting money where money needs to go, and instead of the pockets of political consultants, and that's taking back, renewing the confidence of the donor in general to the MIGOP, and making sure that we are executing on a plan.
And actually, that's part of where that question comes from. Somebody wanted to know, and maybe I'm saying it wrong, but I think what you just said is important. Renewing confidence from donors in who they're giving to is always so important when they find themselves scratching their heads after an election. Like, wait, how did this happen? This is worse than we thought. We thought it would be closer for governor, and it wasn't that close. Somebody asked a question. If you had reviewed the amount of the state parties, I guess it says campaign filing debt, but I guess the financial situation, I guess.
Yeah, no, I have, and it's in disarray. I mean, Ron Weiser, and God bless him for it, he pretty much solely supported the party for the last election cycle. It was all on him. I mean, I don't know what the number was. I think the last number I heard was like he put in $7.1 million of his own money to keep the party afloat. And the reason why he had to do that is because with the loss of confidence that the delegates and the donors have in the MIGOP and just Michigan Republicans in general of not getting anything done when we did have control, no one wants to give money to those organizations. I mean, I think we talked about this a while back too, with after 2020, with Republicans not stepping up and actually going to fight for us. How much harder is it to raise money if you know that your people aren't, if people aren't going to go out and fight for you? Like, I'm not going to give to somebody that doesn't fight for me. And on top of that, it's also the MIGOP has had a problem for years with political consultants, where that money is getting just funneled off, and that doesn't attract a donor. I'm not going to give money to the MIGOP if I know that 30% is just going to end up in the pocket of a political consultant so they can fly around on their private jets and enjoy their boats. It's just, I'm not doing it. I'd rather just give directly to a candidate.
Yeah.
And so that's where a lot the discrepancies come from. We have lost the confidence of the donor base because we have, and I think Ron was a great guy. I just think it was started way back with McDaniel, right?
Yep.
let's not forget it's Ronna Romney. It started way back then, and that's when the confidence was lost. And we can look back at the numbers, and that's when the money stopped going where it needed to go. It stopped going into programs and to make sure that we're winning, or programs of candidates to make sure we're winning. It started going into the pockets of political consultants.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, Michigan is one of those states. When we do the voter file analysis, there's just so many. There's so much that needs to be done, because there are these voters out there that low participation. There's just so much outreach that could be done. There's a wealth of people that when we profile these voters, you don't have partisan, identification and registration. So we have to do these inference models, Drew. And there's just always you're not the only Midwest state, but Michigan's one of the worst, where if Republicans were to find these people, motivate them, get them out, it's overwhelmingly beneficial to them, and to the point where it actually gives them the advantage. So it's not happening, and these things were not being done, right? So I'm curious, what your plans would be. So let's say you had free reign, and this thing goes your way. What do you think are the most important steps that the state party needs to take to move forward here?
One, we need to unite. And whether we need to unite either positively or through positive motivation or negative motivation, we need to unite, because right now, we've all heard the terms establishment and grassroots. I bet you I've asked 200 people to define establishment and grassroots, and I have not got the same answer twice. Well, that means that's a problem, because if I'm going to go out and call somebody establishment, that means something different to me than it does to you. And we're never going to unite around that. If we can't unite around our Judeo-Christian principles, in Republican principles, we're never going to win. And on top of that, when the outside, the middle, the youth, the people that don't know where to vote, how to vote, when all they do is see us fighting back and forth amongst each other, they're not going to come over. We keep on playing right into the Democrats' hands, because we have this anger that we're fighting amongst each other more so than we're actually trying to fight them. And we need to channel that anger and that frustration against Democrats instead of against each other.
It just doesn't feel like you're championing anything or anybody when you're fighting each other. It doesn't inspire confidence.
No, it doesn't inspire confidence from the voter. It doesn't inspire confidence from the donor. And if we can't renew that confidence and stop fighting and bickering, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. He's a new House rep, and I think he's probably one of the most libertarian people I've ever met, conservative, Republican, wants hands off government as much as possible. And he says, I spend more time defending myself against being a rhino than I actually do trying to get something done. And we need to unite. We need to unite. And if we can't, we're never going to raise any money to begin with. So if we can't do that, we might as well just shut the party down, because we're not going to get anywhere. We're not going to raise any money. So that's first. Two, with the raising money, we have a plan. So we need to know how much money we need and what we're going to do, right? Just because you're a non-for-profit organization doesn't mean you make any money. However that comes in through donations or whatever, we need to raise money, and we need a lot of it. And with that, we need to execute on a plan. We developed a plan where that money is going to go, how we're going to get people out voting, how we're going to, be, I hate using the term, but harvesting ballots. That's what the Democrats are doing, and that's what we need to be doing. We need to be out there.
Gotta play the game, Drew.
Yeah, we have one of the proposals that passed is Proposal 2, which it makes sure that Michigan is we're now just like California and Illinois, right? We are going to be blue as forever if we don't start playing the game. The Democrats are playing chess and we're playing checkers, and we need to stand up and fight it. We have to play the game. We need to play it better than they are doing. So we need money to do that. I know Ottawa County, because it's a great county in Michigan. They had Ottawa Impact. I don't know if you heard of it, but they did a fantastic job of organizing together, finding conservative commissioners, school boards all across there, making them sign a contract with their county and getting things and making sure that they are, in positions to keep the county conservative and run. And we need to duplicate that in all the swing counties, eventually every county in Michigan. It's a fantastic, I think we should do it in every county across the country, frankly, because the way they did it is fantastic. Now, obviously some things need to be tweaked, And there's learning lessons every time you go down these roads, but that program needs to be duplicated in every single county, and we need to unite around them.
It's funny. It's funny you brought that up. If I could just pause you for a second there. There are some, even though in many of these states the election did not go the way Republicans wanted, there have been some of these county level, even down school board races, who put together, and Ottawa's a great example, but there are others, where they put together these plans like that and mobilized, and it didn't happen. Forget about statewide, but it didn't happen in neighboring swing counties. It didn't happen in Monroe. It didn't happen in Macomb, right? So because that wasn't done, unfortunately, that success just wasn't duplicated in enough places to make it a close race or make it a competitive, right? So it's interesting to me how some of these it got a little bit too big for their britches. And if I could ask you real quick about this, you brought up the establishment versus grassroots thing. I think in a lot of places, like MAGA won, these power struggles, and now they are kind of the establishment. It's just happening in South Carolina too, by the way. Laura and I were just talking about this. You have places like Horry County and others where these grassroots people, or once upon a time, the outsiders, did win these battles for local control, and now just kind of don't know what to do with it now that they have it. And I mean, I don't know how else to put it. But they're floundering. Yeah, that's a good way they're kind of floundering. They want to be different than what they view to be the establishment. They want to do it differently. But at the same time, when you get the power, Drew, doesn't that kind of make you the establishment, right? Doesn't it? And then you can't just forsake things that work, like raising money. And I understand you want to keep big interests out of it, and you want to be free to do what you want, but you can't just forsake what works, and I feel like a lot of these people, God bless them, they're activists who, haven't been doing this forever, and they threw their hat in, involved. They're more involved in their politics than they ever were before, but it just feels like to me like they don't know what to do now that they have it. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of ways we could take this conversation. When we talked before, it's the dog that finally caught the bus, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
It's exactly what it is. And now we worked hard, we're angry, we got in position, and now what do we do with it? And we're struggling to do anything with it. And so where do we go, and what do we do from there? We need the plan. We need a plan. We got to stick to the plan, so we can win, and that needs to be our number one focus. And the anger that's out there, like I said, we need to funnel that towards beating Democrats against each other. And what was the other part of the question you asked there?
No, I'm just wondering, like how to, I guess you're kind of addressing it, but the answer is it just feels like they don't know what to do from here. And, and they're just, it's resulting in infighting when at some point, and I think some of this will come down to there are some differences in how Republicans should move forward. I think it sounds like it, you're probably closer to my boat, being in the boat that I'm in, which is that we really do need to take what has been done in the past and shrink it down a little bit. And there needs to be a lot more focus on, I hate to use the word, you said harvesting, but really almost a bigger umbrella and almost called it community organizing. There needs to be more voter identification. There needs to be more voter outreach. There needs to be more registration, and there needs to be more harvesting. That's what, and you can't take too long trying to catch up because they're going to evolve in the next election. They already know now. They have their infrastructure. So Democrats can move beyond that and start to add some kind of persuasion tactics into it, where before Republicans were dealing with just persuasion and not realizing that it really is a ballot race. It's a ballot harvesting race. And I think some people probably disagree with that. What do you feel when you're going around and you're talking to people, and obviously you're trying to earn their support? Where do you think most people feel on this? Do you think that most understand that you have to play the game?
Yeah. So I'm going to break this into two different things. First, let's start off with the money. I am not, like I tell everybody, if you're against big money in politics, I'm not your candidate, because it does take big money. I'm not gonna try and, you know, get 50,000 people to give me $20 when I can go to one person and get $1 million. What I am against is lobbyists and special interest groups trying to influence elections through their
Rent seeking. Yeah,
right.
rent seeking. Yeah,
yeah. That's what I'm 100% against that. But if you are a donor and you want to give, you know, and people say, well, you know, we can't have, you know, all they're trying to do by get a candidate in is for their own special interest. Well, if there's a large donor who wants to get a candidate in place because that candidate is for school of choice, well, I'm for school of choice. I should be thanking that donor for putting the money towards a candidate that's going to give school of choice, right? Instead of saying, well, we can't have any big money. Listen, I can only give 200 and they can give 200,000. I thank you for helping. Like, whatever we can do to help support you further, how can we get all work together to get behind that candidate to make sure that they are, you know, make sure that they win. That's, you know, trying to focus on that instead of trying to focus on, well, you know, no large money in politics at all. That's just not going to work. We're never going to win because we're never going to have as much money as the Democrats to compete. It's just never going to work. So
we've seen that, Drew. That there were people who tried that this past cycle. Let's be honest. There were people who tried that. They got clobbered. Why? Yeah. Because they didn't have money in major media markets. And, you know, while Trump's getting 42% plus in Allegheny County, they get crushed by 40 points. I mean, you know, so that matters. It matters. It's just a reality.
Yeah. And then the second part is data. We are so far behind the Democrats in our data. And you know this. You're looking at data every single day. We don't have accurate voter databases. We don't have accurate like Ottawa County. Bill Heising was saying this the other day when he was speaking. He said, Ottawa County has me as a moderate Republican. He's an elected official. They have him and his whole family as moderate Republican. It doesn't, like, it's so out of touch and out of base that we need to refine our data.
If they have the right address and the right phone number and the right email. I mean, it's so bad. It's terrible.
It's horrible. And, you know, one of the things that, you know, as we are out there chasing these ballots, I don't know if you've heard of Hunt the Vote. It's an organization that I've been with or worked with in the past. They were able to identify the fact that there's certain states where people that hold hunting licenses don't get out and vote. And in Michigan, it's like 50%.
Huge.
Well,
yeah.
We got 750,000 people out there voting, and they're going out buying hunting licenses every year. Roughly hold around 83% of those people vote conservative. And now we're saying half of those don't vote. That means we got 350,000 people that we need to be making sure are registering for ballots, getting their ballots filled out and sent in. Right? I get it. In Michigan, it's the best hunting week of the year is when we have to vote. But that doesn't mean you can't fill out an absentee ballot and get your vote sent in.
And up until now, though, that was kind of like a dirty word, absentee ballot vote. It was frowned upon, and that was a big mistake. We call them field to stream voters here. Field and stream voters. That's what we call them. And in Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, oh my God, there's so many of them, and they're just left on the table. Their voting history is pathetic. They're like 1 out of 4s if you're lucky. It's terrible.
It is terrible. And we need to be chasing those. Those are easy, low propensity voters that we need to be getting out there targeting. And, you know, and just updating this database. Like, we need to reach them. And all of them, all the way across the board. Michigan had horrible voter turnout. I mean, some counties were down 10% or more for voter turnout on the Republican side. That doesn't win elections.
Macomb was horrible. It was terrible.
It does not win elections. And we need to get out. And kind of a combination of the money and data, you know, if we don't get a plan together, now we got a presidential year coming up. If we don't get a plan together, show progress on this plan, and start working towards it as this presidential money's coming up in 2024, you know, for this election, we're not going to get any of it. I mean, they're just going to look over us, and, you know, maybe that Rhonda's in, she, you know, has a soft spot for Michigan, you know, but
right.
might get a little, you know, tidbit from the table. But if we're not going to, if we can't, like, show progress and show this is what we're doing, how, you know, we have people out there door knocking, we have people out there At my plan, my plan is I want 400 full-time people for, 3 months before, getting people out registering, getting their ballots filled out and sent in. And that on top of that, some of that money also is going to get put towards colleges, right? We need to build up our youth. We have to get, youth, our youth chair needs to make sure that we have people in every single college doing what Turning Point's doing and making sure that we are getting people registered and we're showing why we need to, why you need to vote conservative, not vote Democrat. And we need to be doing that. Otherwise, we're not going to get any money from the Nationals. And we have to.
There were two places, two different states, but two places where I did see successful targeting of college campuses by Republicans. And that was Florida in Gainesville. They did a fantastic job. Look at that margin in Alachua County. I mean, folks, when you just shred a little bit off of their margin with when it comes to something like college campus, it does massive damage countywide, massive damage. And, obviously this is a game of margins. It wasn't close in Florida, but the other one in North Carolina was a 3.5 point race. And there was an effort by Republicans to get some votes out of VCU. They were going around before, Drew, and just interviewing college voters. And these college voters inflation was a big deal. And, because they're kids, they don't have that kind of money. So they're, when they have to pay so much more for them, it was really food and groceries. If you got them a ballot, they would vote Republican. It's just you have to push them to do it. And that's why Democrats are there. They know that they're not very well motivated, and they did much better in that area of Pitt. So imagine what that did for Ted Budd's margin. It's a big deal. Padded him a little bit when it looked like it was going to get a little bit close there. All they really could at the end of the day rely on was Mecklenburg and, other places like that. But in areas where it's close, it may be slightly Democratic like Pitt, they couldn't get that kind of big buffer to get Sherry Beasley over the finish line because they just cut their margins a little bit here, a little bit there, and it did damage statewide. So it's a big. You said 400, you meant walkers, right?
400, 400 full time that are going to
that's beautiful.
One data, right? I mean, focus on the data. This needs to be run efficiently. One, we got to invest in the data first, making sure we know who these voters are, find the neighborhoods where half the people are registered, they're voting conservative, go door to door, and the rest of them, make sure that we are, birds of a feather, make sure that this data is perfect, that we know who we need to target, how we need to target them, get walkers out there, make sure they're going door to door, making sure they're getting their absentee ballot filled out, sent to them, filled out, and sent back in. And if we can't do, because that's what the Democrats are doing, so we need to do it. We need to do it better than they are.
I got to tell you, that's huge because you can't let the campaigns individually flounder. On the right, the door knocking situation is pathetic. They're basically two firms that are like serious in this, and I can tell you from experience that. If it ends up being a candidate that, for instance, some people just don't like, and these firms are very aware of whether or not a job they take may hurt them in the future. So look, I'm trying to walk a line here, but the fact is I know some of them fudge numbers. I know it. I've caught them doing it, and it was just because there were candidates that maybe leadership in Washington didn't like. So they were afraid of getting on their bad side and losing future business. So the idea that state party that wants to do that, at that level and not just put it all on the candidate, then that is, I'm telling folks out there, this is huge. Democrats are way ahead of Republicans on this, and they have paid walkers. They're basically permanent, almost during the season. They're not people that are getting a couple of bucks here and there. They were able to put food on the table with the amount of money that we're making from walking for campaigns. Raphael Warnock, again, he was paying like $40 to these people an hour, whereas Republicans, they have these like temporary untrained people, and they're getting like, depending on the area, California was like $13, Florida or Texas, was like 11, I think it was something like that for Abbott's campaign. It just wasn't, and Abbott won, but it was Texas, different, Yeah, so can you hang out a second? You want to hang out for a few more minutes?
Yeah.
Add another thing I wanted to ask you. I just got to do first up. I got to do a little bit of a word from our sponsors, but stay tuned, Drew. I really appreciate it. This is good talk. This is good stuff. All right, let's go first to here. New one. And Drew probably knows these people, actually. Look, if you're a coffee person like me, and actually there's a lot more there, the gourmet popcorn is delicious. I want you to check out jamandbean.com, and that's JAMN bean.com. And what's great about Jam and Bean, why I found them and I love them, is that I don't know how many people actually know this, but it's true if you're a coffee drinker. And I know some of you saw it behind me and have been buying it already. That's great. But use the promo code TPP at checkout and you'll get 10% off. They're different because if you go to the store and you go to Starbucks and you ask for a medium roast, if you're a K-Pod, Laura and I like both, but it's very convenient K-Pods for us. So they're not real medium roasts, and you can taste the difference. You have to get bag coffee and do it the right way through a press or something. If you get Starbucks, if you get anyone else and try to get a medium roast, you don't even realize it. But really what you're doing is getting a little less dark roast coffee that is made to taste like a medium roast. And there's a lot of technology stuff involved there and how this happens through the process that I don't want to, you with and keep you in the weeds. But believe me when I tell you that this is actually a medium roast K-Pod that is delicious. All their other coffee too as well. You can see I drink a lot of it. It's in the back. There are different flavors. There is an art to bean roasting, which I was privileged to be able to be introduced when I was very young, a young guy. And I know when I see an artist, and this guy is an artist. All right. So check it out. Jam and Bean. Also, by the way, they were warriors during COVID. All right, during the COVID tyranny that so many people were hurt over. But check it out. The gourmet popcorn. If you want some, I'll tell you. The buffalo one is my favorite, but also the sour cream and chive one, Laura, and both of us love it. I kid you not. I was like, they must have ground up real chives, and guess what? They did. All right, because when you eat it, it's all natural. Yeah, when you eat it, it tastes like a chive. It doesn't taste like a dirty bag of from the grocery store. Their popcorn is delicious. The caramel, delicious. And I'm not even a big fan of caramel popcorn, but theirs was amazing. The kids loved it. My kids, Laura, all of us. So check it out. Go to jamandbean.com. Use the promo code TPP at checkout and get yourself 10% off. All right. Great company, great product.
Great people.
Great people. Yep. Great people. All right. So Drew, while we're on that,
Doug Lee is a great American patriot, and he is
I knew. Yeah, I thought you knew him. I thought you knew that.
I'm like 2 minutes from a shop right now.
And I'll tell you, when I was young, I was it was when George Bush was running against Al Gore. And that's how I don't want to date myself. I'm 41. I don't think there's anybody that doesn't know that at this point. But I was a kid, and I was trying to have some kind of extra income. And I got taken on by this guy who started his own coffee roasting company in Jersey. And interesting side story, they have oolong tea at Jam and Bean that's delicious. It's hard to find like a Chinese oolong tea that's really good. And I get picky because of this guy, Andrew, that I met, who's a great roaster, and he knew his teas. They have a great oolong. And I'll never forget. They asked me to drop off a delivery, and guess who it was, Drew? They sent me to New York City, to this place in New York City, and this coffee shop. And it was just for it looked not like they were supplying a coffee shop. It looked like somebody's personal order. Indeed, it was. At the time, then Senator Hillary Clinton. That was her oolong tea. And then I drove up there. But it was great because I got to see how the roasting happens, and you'll never look at a Starbucks bean again, because they're just pulverized and over roasted. And there are a few people who really know how to roast a good bean, man. And these guys, that I don't even like medium anymore because I'm so disappointed. And when I tried their medium, even in the K-Pod, I was like, that is a roaster who knows what he's doing. It's yummy. It's like good people wine, too, as you know.
You know what I'm saying? It's like cultivating wine.
Yeah, it's an art. It's an art. It's an art form. Yeah. And as you know, good people too. They very good people. Patriots. That's it.
Yeah.
One word.
He did a lot to help out John Gibbs, and everybody loves John.
Yeah. And John's now, speaking of Ottawa, isn't he
Yeah.
like the temporary manager for Ottawa?
Yeah, he is.
Good. That's like a perfect role for someone like John, don't you think? Like he's a great managerial kind of thing. It's just a good role because he's such an intelligent guy. For people who don't know this, John Gibbs is a very smart guy. So it's perfect for him. Really is.
Like I said, we need to duplicate what they're doing there. So I'm excited that John's in this role to learn the inside and outs of it, so we can duplicate it, because John's the perfect person to duplicate that and roll that out. Like I said, statewide and countrywide.
And Ottawa was like, it's like really like a little brother to Kent, right? I mean, isn't it?
Pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah. And he did well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess Drew, I want to give you a post commercial break period here to basically give the pitch, and yeah, tell people, when this is happening, and why delegates should back Drew Bourne.
Yeah, absolutely. Like my tagline is, I'm here to unite the passion of the debate to the pockets of the donors. Right. I'm as grassroots as they come. Like I said, I bought bornforcongress.com. I was going to primary Meyer myself before, I think my mom's prayers got answered that we found John Gibbs, because I was going to primary myself, because I was not going to let, I have a daughter that my wife went to labor on election day, born the day after. And the way I look at it is, I'm not going to look at her when she's, 12, 14, 18, 8 years old and say, Dad didn't do everything he could to stop the commies. So that's why I'm here. And that's why I have to so, and what we need is a plan, right? We need a plan to win. It's going to take unity. It's going to take money, and it's going to take a fight. And we need to start this yesterday. And we need to unite together, and we need to all work together on this and get the plan done. And we need to, like I said, we need to duplicate what Ottawa impacted. We need walkers. We need to be out there chasing ballots. We need a legal team. Number one, we need a legal team. I know Matt DePerno is one of the other candidates running against him. He did a fantastic job, trying to chase the election fraud that we had here in Michigan. He just wasn't successful in getting anything done. Right. We need a legal team like Harmeet Dillon's team, or somebody to come in that and well-funded, that we can take on, election integrity cases, and ballot, whatever we need to do to make sure that Michigan elections are fair, our rights are being protected. So we need a strong legal team for that. And we got to win. I mean, we need to make sure that our data is up top speeds, or, at the highest level, better than them. We know who to target, when to target them, what we need to do we need 750,000 votes. We're 750,000 ballots. We got to stop chasing votes. It's not get out the vote. It's get out the ballot now. And what are we going to do that? We need data. We need people going door to door, making sure that we're doing that. I'll get my plan out here by the end of the day. Just trying to, make it look pretty right now to, as a one pager, just make sure that everyone can see what are we doing to win, and how are we going to win? Because, they're all great candidates, but we need leadership that's able to get it done.
The musical chairs thing, that time has got to stop. I'm serious. There does need to be fresh ideas and people who understand how elections have changed. They have changed. It is post 2020. I mean, we have the calendar, that's before Christ and after Christ. In the electoral landscape, we really do have a new timeline before COVID 2020 and after, because Democrats spent the money. They put that money in. And it's like, yeah, a lot of it isn't sexy, Drew, right? I mean, and people they're not attracted to that kind of hard legwork that needs to be done, but it does need to be done, because, we're chasing, Republicans are chasing. They're already there. So they're going to be looking for ways to add to it. So it's good that you see really it's a task. It's a monumental task, but it can be done. and there needs to be fresh blood to do it. That's just always the way it has always been in the history of the world in government, right? I mean, that's it. So yeah, it was great talking to you today, man. I wish you all the best. I really do. Hope you come back and update us.
Yeah, one last note. I think we all thought we were going to be able to, outvote the fraud in this red wave that we all heard was going to sweep the country, and we just proved that was not going to be the case, especially here in Michigan. I mean, I was followed your numbers extremely closely through this whole thing, and it just the number. I mean, some of the discrepancies is too far for me to even fathom. I still don't know how it happened because. I mean, your numbers were the closest. And so, I mean, it still doesn't make sense how it happened. So it's not going to happen. The game's changed. We need to know the game's changed and we need to attack it different.
Yeah. And it's not just, it was not just one. That's what you understand. It was not just one candidate or one campaign. It was the structural things that you're talking about. That's really what came down to it. Republicans simply didn't squeeze out the potential from the electorate that they had. We need 750. You said that's really the way you have to start thinking about this. That's the way everyone has to start thinking about this. And there's only a few ways in this modern era that you can do it. It's not just simply a game of winning a message anymore. I mean, all of that, of course, those are part of the fundamentals. But you're right. This is about ballot chasing. That's what this is, and all of it that goes into it. So it's good to hear. I spoke with you now. You got
time for one last note.
Yeah, absolutely.
In 2022, the MIGOP left Tudor Dixon out to dry. Right? She did not have any support. They did not. They left her to carry the whole ticket with her. And great, if you got somebody that can do it, and I think she was strong enough to do it, but if you're not going to give her any financial support to do it, you're not going to win. And that's exactly. And I think I don't know what happened, but that was your first question. That was the major thing that happened in 2022 is the MIGOP said, no, who knows where they were, what they were doing, but they were not backing the candidates that we needed back to make sure that they were all getting the support that they needed to win in 2022. And as a leader, as leadership, that's what you need. Your job as a leader is to make sure that the people that look up to you have the tools, the resources, and the support they need to do their job to the best they can. And if you're not going to get the support from the MIGOP, you're not going to win.
Yeah, amen, man. Because you can't count on the RGA. You can't count. I mean, it's just not. You have to fend for yourself. And she was, and she's not alone, but. Yeah, I really see like something greater that happened here, but a lot of people just were caught off guard, and these candidates were left out to dry, man. They did, so it can't happen again because there's just simply not a lot of time to do this. And that's something I think people need to understand. This cannot be pushed off until next year or next election cycle or whatever. These changes have to start to get made immediately. They're just, this is not a long time in politics. You lose the state a couple of more times, you could be in big trouble. You'll be chasing it forever, man. You'll be chasing it forever. And that's not, I'm glad that there are people like you and others that we have talked to that really do see, they get it. So thanks. Come back and tell us how things have gone, Drew. We'll look forward to an update.
Cool. Appreciate it, Rich.
All right. All the best, Drew.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
As Drew Bourne, everyone telling you, he gets it. And it's good to hear some of these people. Drew's obviously trying to fix the state party. But there are other candidates who are running and they are realizing what they did wrong with their races, right? So there isn't a lot of time for Republicans to catch up to Democrats. There's not. So, I'm trying to be nice. I think DePerno's a great guy. I do. I mean, but this is getting to be musical chairs now, for what? For the sake of what? How much money did Joe DePerno raise in his election? Can we be real for a minute? Right? That can't happen. 1.5. Yep. And so, and by the way, a lot of the truth is, it was hard. It was hard to even get that without the help of certain people. So it's good. And, I know Drew and others, they want to unite the party and just move forward. But it wasn't for, I'm trying to be nice here, but it wasn't because of him that money came in. It just wasn't. That's the reality. So let's do, should we take a real quick, let's do this and then we'll get to our Q&A. Okay, sound good? Let's go to a real quick word from our sponsor, and then we will get our other sponsor, and then we'll get to our Q&A. All right, for those of you who are doing this, we love you for it. We love you for supporting our sponsors. Our sponsors support us, and you supporting our sponsors makes the whole thing go around. All right, so basically, I am in this boat right now. I see the summer around the corner. They're cleaning the pool. Okay. I want to look the best I can look. All right. And also, the best thing you can do to guard yourself against any pandemic of the flu every year, whatever it may be, is simply to be healthy. All right. And there are fad diets out there. They come, they go. We've tried them. They don't work. We've all been there. We've all done that. All right. You know what does achieve all of these fad diets claim to achieve? Simply consuming 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. All right. And I get it. Nobody loves all of these vegetables. It's not something that you want to put on your palate every day. And then B, for me, it's a matter of practicality. It's just not practical to eat that much a day. But that's where Field of Greens comes in. All right. I can give you the whole spiel about the science-backed formula, but if you've bought it already and you've tried it, you already know. All right. Everyone's experience is different, but without a doubt, the proof will come when you go to your doctor and they say, whatever you did since your last blood work, since the last time I made you step on the scale, keep it up. All right. So that's where Field of Greens, I want you to go check it out at fieldofgreens.com right now. Use the promo code TPP. Let's get you started with 15% off right now. Right, there's berry, there's lemon lime. Again, I'm a lemon lime guy. Laura's a berry guy. But the unflavored, you could throw it in something like a Gatorade or a Body Armor, which is what I do. But the lemon lime, you could just actually put in water. The berry, you could just put in water, and that's what we do. And get everything your body needs to have a healthy and fully functioning metabolic system. All right. So again, fieldofgreens.com. Fieldofgreens.com. Use the promo code. Laura has it up right now. TPP, obviously, for the People's Pundit. Get your 15% off today. Go check it out. All right, so let's get some of these Q&As in. All right, from locals. Let me go to locals first. All right. What else? Can you get it and throw it in there? What is Drew's contact info? Laura will get it and send it over to you. Tell you right now, you guys on Twitter, I'll get you his Twitter.
I know his Twitter.
Laura.
Drew W.
Yep, there.
Drew W. Bourne.
Drew W. Bourne. I'm gonna throw it in there right now. Okay. Who is that from? That was from YouTube. Okay, but I'll throw it all in there. I'll throw it in locals. Now it's coming your way. Rumble coming your way. All right. And again, I really think he's got a firm grasp on what is the issue, what needs to be done. That permanent walker apparatus for a state party is huge. Because what happens now is that the campaigns are basically left to fend for themselves. And I am telling you that I absolutely, wow, it's awfully early. Oh, it's a half a. Oh my God, I'm thinking, what on earth is wrong with my daughter? All right. Yeah, so basically, folks, what happens now is that the campaign, if you're on the Republican side, you really have like 2 choices, all right, of people that have solid reputations. But unfortunately, if we were just talking about John Gibbs, if you're like MAGA or something, if you're like, whatever it may be, and maybe leadership isn't thrilled about you getting elected, or if you're running in a primary and you're running against like the establishment candidate, right? So Gibbs would have had a hell of a time hiring a certain firm to walk against Peter Mayer. And we know we have gone down a bunch of lists. This has to be done independently at this point. All right, go ahead. Give me the news. What is it? Oh my God, my daughter won her mock court case today. The wolf. She had to defend the wolf against the 3 little pigs. And and she did it. She successfully defended the big bad wolf. Go girl, go girl. And there was she came at it with she was actually limited on the argument she could make, she came at it from some pretty out of the box ways. And I knew you were going to win. I totally had faith in you. You had a strong argument. Good for you. Good for you. Let's see. So actually, and by the way, I'll just throw it out there. I've actually, because I identified this as such a big problem, not just me, I've talked to Barnes about this and everything, that I think we're just going to do it. I really do. I think we're going to add that to the repertoire of stuff that we do, because I don't think that these dinosaurs who have been doing this way, the same way, I don't think they train properly. I don't think they pay enough because they want to stick most of that check in their pockets, right? So if you have walkers out there making 10 to 15 bucks an hour, but Democrats are paying their walkers $20 to $40 an hour, who do you think is going to get better results? Who's going to work harder for you? The truth is the Democratic consultant is just putting less in their pocket, right? Or because they do better with fundraising. And again, it's so nice and idealistic to say you want to keep big money out of politics, but you can't. Not if you want to win. You know how much it is to knock on 20,000 doors? About $100,000, right? About 100 grand. All right. So this has to be, and somebody said, yep, this has to be done correctly. And I don't think that's happening. I don't think they're being trained correctly. And I don't think that enough money is going towards the candidate. I just don't. And I know I'm right. I mean, I it's not a matter of whether this is like a debate. It's not a debate. All right, so let's go to locals. Dun, 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 dun. What do you think of the latest on a Kamala Hillary ticket in 2024? They do seem to be throwing around all this crazy stuff every day, don't they? I think they're confident in their election operation, that's why infrastructure for Republicans is going to be so important, because barring Donald Trump, I just don't think that I don't think that it would be hard. Even crappy Democratic candidates could beat a Republican ticket because of the infrastructure they have in place. All right, look, Fetterman beat Mehmet Oz in Pennsylvania. Nobody is disputing that Fetterman is an idiot after his stroke and he's basically brain dead. I mean, they can't talk correctly. Nobody's disputing that. Nobody was disputing that Fetterman was smarter than, who's smarter, Oz or Fetterman? Give me a break, right? It was about collecting ballots and leaving people out high and dry at the top of the ticket. Certainly going to have a negative impact down ticket. I think Hillary's itching to get back in this thing. I don't think she would ever take a VP slot. I don't. I think Kamala is more likely to be the VP than Hillary. I really think, and I know that there have been people who have asked Hillary whether or not she would do it again. Do I think Sununu will run in 24 to stop Trump in New Hampshire? That's a great. But here's the truth. South Carolina is it. South Carolina is the kingmaker. And I don't know how you can beat Trump right now in South Carolina. He may even win Iowa, the Iowa caucuses, because he's the one who ended Roe v. Wade. The Iowa caucuses have been dominated by social issues like abortion for years, the Iowa Republican caucuses. Even on the left, social issues have mattered. And he's going to be the only one who can say, guess what? I ended Roe v. Wade. So where do you think I'm going to stand on these social issues? You know where I'm going to stand. I did it. He may be the favorite in the Iowa caucus right now. Remember, even as what was thought to have been a socially moderate Republican in 2016, he damn near beat Ted Cruz. There was a dirty trick. Ted Cruz, it's a caucus, it's fair game, but it was a dirty trick. Ted Cruz pulled to stop Donald Trump from beating him in Iowa. And Trump had no infrastructure. He didn't have precinct captains everywhere arguing for him. It's like you got to have precinct captains out there. Caucuses are not like primaries, as you know. And you give your case about why people should caucus with you. Trump didn't even have the infrastructure that Cruz and Carson and others had. It was amazing that he still almost did it. But Ted Cruz sent out, whoops, sorry about that, guys. Ted Cruz sent out he started spreading rumors, and he even sent out a robocall, basically saying that Ben Carson dropped out and that Ben Carson wants you to vote for Ted Cruz. It was dirty, man. So it was shady as hell, but it worked because I saw them with my own eyes. I heard them with my own ears. They were like, well, I was going to go with Carson. That's why Carson underperformed in a lot of these places because they thought their guy was out. And by the time Carson came back and said, no, this isn't true, then it was too late. It was too late. What else? So yeah, if Sununu were to run in New Hampshire, could he beat Donald Trump? Yeah, I think he could. New Hampshire, he could. But then again, by the way, remember that Trump overperformed in New Hampshire both times. In 2020, there were a couple of polls suggesting he would lose a lot of support. New Hampshire is the state where if you're going as an incumbent president to have a problem, you'll see it in New Hampshire first. George Herbert Walker Bush had a problem. Jimmy Carter. Who else? So basically, historically, the people who did the best in New Hampshire as incumbents was Ronald Reagan, Barack Obama, and Bill Clinton. All right, as far as not losing a ton of support. And then in 2020, Trump beat them all. Now, he has the record for the most consolidated support for an incumbent president in New Hampshire. Yeah, he did. I mean, he was a caucus huckster. I just read that comment. It was a dirty trick. It was. But, it's fair game. It is fair game. It just sucks. It is a dirty, dirty trick. And it's like, do you really want to win like that? Do you? I don't think I'd want to win like that. I think I'd want to win on the merits, but it is kind of likely that Cruz, I mean, we've done the math on this. Years ago, we did the math showing you at each caucus location how many votes or caucus goers Ted Cruz probably pulled away from Ben Carson, and that was enough to keep Ted Cruz in the lead. If you take those people away, Donald Trump wins the Iowa caucus. So that would have been it. After that, I mean, game, set, match, because he went on in New Hampshire to win. He went on to win every single county and take all 50 delegates in South Carolina, which is not a winner-take-all state. He made it a winner-take-all state by winning every single county. I think that's the first time that ever happened. Yeah. Whew. So, and I see Jonathan Gillespie on Twitter, and I'm sorry if you didn't want me to blurt your name out like that, but yeah, he's tweeting somebody about Drew and I's conversation about, he called them hunters, hunter voters, and that's why it says Hunt the Vote is the name of the organization. We call them field and stream voters. There are hundreds of thousands of them in like every one of these states in the Midwest. That's why I told the White House when Trump was president, you're killing your reelection if you pull after I forgot what shooting it was, where they wanted a gun ban, and he wound up just banning bump stocks. But I said, you do this, you go with the red flag laws, it's over, because Trump is actually somebody who got some of these votes out. Nobody else can. It's very clear a lot of these other Republicans can't do it. But in Minnesota, there's a ton of them. Michigan, too. Wisconsin's another one. That's why some of them, I've also argued that those voters are the key to Republicans being able to flip the green argument on them. Because the truth be told, Republicans are the party that's really green. The environment is not really what the Democratic argument about the environment is not about the environment. It's about climate change, and it's about economics and industry. Republicans are about the environment. They're the ones who restore Twin Lakes in Florida. They're the ones who make sure that field and stream activities are preserved.
And abundant.
That's the real environment, babe.
They want to go fishing.
Teddy Roosevelt, without him, we wouldn't even have national parks like the way we do today. Trump in Michigan, he's the one who went with that preserve, funded the rest of that project. Democrats, Barack Obama didn't give a rat's. You know what about that? Come on. The Great Lakes Project thing. What was it called? The Great Lakes Project? Something like that. In Florida, Republicans have been able to turn the green argument against Democrats. They could do that everywhere, and definitely in the Rust Belt states where they have these field and stream voters. But Hunt the Vote, that's definitely cool. But Listen, it always worries me when I see this. Civil war is trending. I mean, this is a bad time. Pence is still trending. He said, I think I submitted all the documents. I don't think I have anything laying around that I shouldn't have. They're going to find something. They're going to find something. The conservation movement. 80s Aaron wrote, they used to call it the conservation movement. And my family was all into that. We released pheasant. Exactly. Like, you're the ones making sure that there still will be pheasant in the bushes to rustle and shoot out of the sky. Like, there's a sufficient population to go hunting. You're the ones who are trying to preserve the deer population, white-tailed deer population. Like, Democrats are not doing this. When Kirsten Gillibrand ran as a so-called conservative Democrat for areas around Bear Mountain and Rochester, north of Rochester, all that, they were destroying the hunting and fishing industries. She didn't do a damn thing. So this is an easy argument to turn around. And honestly, I would argue that you could use that as an offensive issue. And Drew said something before, like, when you're on defense, you're losing. That's so true. They need issues where they can go on offense. Wedge issues, like Democrats have wedge issues. Climate change, abortion. Republicans need wedge issues. Immigration, trade, those were wedge issues. But unfortunately, Trump fixed all those trade issues. There's still some stuff with China that needs to be rectified. But damn, I'm losing my voice quickly. I'm sick. I'm trying not to lose Laura's voice is gone, basically. Do you think fighting woke is a winning strategy? I believe when specific cases like the tragic rape in Loudoun County are brought out, it's powerful, but general woke hate could be like family values that boomerang on Bush and Quayle. Your thoughts? Specific cases. I was just talking to a certain school board about this yesterday. Specific things are there for the taking. And if you are general about it, Blondie, you run the risk of looking like a bigot or something towards certain people. But when you talk about the specifics, like a rape in Loudoun County because of gender-neutral bathrooms, then you're winner, chicken dinner. I mean, this is no-brainer. And there are so many specifics you could use them. Like, for instance, transgender devil worshipping during the Emmys or Grammys or whatever. I mean, this stuff, people, they even tried to put that as huge ratings surged with the headlines. The ratings were better than last year's, but that's not at all considered robust viewership for those award ceremonies. They've been cratering for years. So yeah, actually,
No, I don't want to watch.
Just now, they're saying DeWine might get in here in Ohio. I don't think DeWine could beat Donald Trump in the Ohio primary. You're not talking. DeWine did great in a general election, but you're talking about a Republican electorate, and DeWine may do good in the suburbs of Cincinnati or something, but he's going to get crushed in Toledo by Donald Trump. I mean, he's going to get crushed in Mahoney. He's going to get crushed in Woods and Trumbull. I don't think DeWine can beat Donald Trump in Ohio, but expect them to do this. The strategy they employed or deployed in 2016. Vote for Kasich in Ohio. Vote for Rubio in Florida. Vote for Cruz in Wisconsin. They will try to do this. I just don't see it happening. And what they don't understand, again, is that John Kasich could not beat Donald Trump in a primary in Ohio right now. All right. These people, they pulled their last card back then. Now everyone understands who they are. DeWine is not going to win a Republican primary against Donald Trump in Ohio. He's going to lose. He's going to lose pretty badly, probably. He'll get some of the bigger population centers, but I don't even know about that. I want to stay quiet about certain things. But soon we're going to start to talk about what could be the new Trump coalition, and it will be for the primary as well as the general. In fact, we'll have Liz Harrington on Monday to talk about corruption at the FBI. Forgot to tell you that. Yeah.
Just the producer here.
I just hit her, it's just a producer. Well, I know.
Producer.
It happened literally right before the show today.
Right?
And you weren't there. Well, you were there. I wasn't in the same room. So I'm telling you now. All right, sweetheart?
Doing the back show?
I'm doing la, la.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what else? Yeah, I don't want to get ahead of myself. There will be people who will try to like steal credit for the strategy, but people already know. You guys know. We've talked about it before. There's a reason why Trump polled better than all the other Republicans in battleground states. It's not just me. It was Emerson. It was Rasmussen. Everybody who did it a head-to-head plus whatever Senate race or whatever governor's race or the generic ballots. We did all, we always did a generic ballot in the states where we were polling individual Senate races or governor races or both. And Trump was way ahead. And there's a reason he was way ahead. He does better in rural areas than traditional Republicans because he's taking Bernie Sanders' old vote from 2016, which Bernie lost in 2020. Notice Biden was winning the rural areas in the primaries, the Democratic nomination. Sanders was winning the urban areas. Sanders screwed over, bend over Bernie, stabbed those voters in their backs by flipping on immigration, by flipping on trade, by flipping on the Second Amendment. And by the time that came around, he needed them. He didn't have them. They were already Trump voters. That's why Trump does better in rural America. It's a little secret for you and the thousands of people watching. All right. But there's another part of that coalition that he does better in. And I'm just going to, I'll give you one example. So Lombardo was up by 2 points in our poll, right? 1.6, something like that. 1.4, 1.6. He was, a little bit ahead in Washoe, a little bit. Barely. And he was down in Clark County by 4, something like that. So we were like pretty much right on. But like other pollsters, for some reason, Laxalt polled better in the polls and did worse. Explain that. Well, we can all explain that. Washoe County can explain it to us. Same amount of time that mail dump was counted when the cameras went out. That's how you can explain that.
No, the pipe burst too.
And the pipe was Georgia.
Pipe.
Come on, get your states right.
But yeah, it was all dry.
Come on.
No, I know.
Such
But
a
I'm
load
just
of crap.
saying, all these stories.
I mean, if you want to believe that, if you want to be that stupid and believe it, go ahead. But Lombardo has friends that Laxalt doesn't have, so they couldn't do it to Lombardo too. That's the bottom line. Anyway, comparing those margins, Trump is not just a little ahead in Washoe, and it's because of not white voters. All right? He's not a little ahead. He's more ahead than Lombardo was because he has not just white working class people outside or in Reno. And then in Clark, he's not down in Clark County. He's ahead because outside of Lombardo did better than Laxalt slightly, but he did. In Clark, Trump is running like 8 points stronger in Clark County. That's a huge margin shift because Clark is 70+% of the vote statewide. Meanwhile, Trump is doing better in Douglas and in Elk because he's got that bigger, and it's hard to squeeze out more rural vote. It's impossible, actually, but Trump gets just a little bit more than most Republican candidates. And then in urban areas, he doesn't just get the white working class. He gets non-white working class. So without giving up more than that, specifics, you could see it clear as day, folks, when you look at the areas where Trump performed better, got more votes, and improved on his margin. They are mainly urban areas. Chicago, Los Angeles, Honolulu, Hawaii, the 5 boroughs in New York City. Why? Those aren't white voters. There aren't enough white voters. That's it. They're done. That's maxed out. Those were non-whites, working class people. And I just don't see how DeWine beats that because he's not going to get the Obama voter that is, or the Obama Bernie voter that is now a Trump voter. They're not getting those votes. Those votes are only coming out for Trump. I think it's very clear. Republicans needed, that was their task for the last 3 years, and they blew it, to get those voters to vote Republican when Trump is not on the ticket. But they blew it because they thought Allen was going to win Rhode Island 2, because they thought they were going to win Connecticut 5.
They made a mistake. They kept thinking.
Youngkin did great. And Youngkin is a great example of putting together those coalitions. He did do a good job. However, his margin would have come down if there was more. It was about 4 million, a little bit over votes. If it was like 5.5 or close to that, like a presidential cycle, He would not have gotten that working class margin. It would have shrunk a little bit. But Youngkin is a perfect example of running as, because he's not Trumpy by character, but he sure is governing very Trumpy. He is. And when you do what you say you're going to do, like Scott Walker, you can win a blue state and become a super popular governor, Republican governor. Look at Youngkin. He didn't stab his base in the back. He's doing everything he said he was going to do. And he's super popular right now. Notice the last approval rating was like 56, and Biden's at 41 in this poll. Hold on. I want to say it was a Monmouth poll. Let's see. Yeah, I do think that Glenn Youngkin could probably beat Tim Kaine. He probably could. Probably. I'm trying to find crap. It's just some Black Lives Matter headline, so I got to roll all the way down here. The Morning Consult poll. Wow. So here's February 4th. That's not as big as the Monmouth, but I'll show it to you. Interactive polls. I think Dave at Interactive Polls. He put up a couple of recent ones. Let's show you. But I think it was a Monmouth poll that I was thinking of, and Youngkin's approval was like 56%. It's ridiculous. Hold on, guys. I'm so sick. Hold on. I need to blow my nose. Killing me. Oh my God.
And there are some questions, by the way.
So the average is 53.33 plus 20. He's net 20. Woo! So that goes to show you when you govern as a conservative and run as a conservative and then win and govern as a conservative. DeSantis is another example. DeSantis won because of Trump. He was going to lose to Andrew Gillum. But he governed as he said he would govern. And he's governing as like a MAGA governor, you know. Look how popular DeSantis is now. Look how popular Glenn Youngkin is now. And by the way, Walker was a good example of this too. We would talk to people in Wisconsin all the time, and we would say, do you approve or disapprove of the job Scott Walker's doing? They would say, I somewhat approve or I somewhat disapprove. And then when we'd ask them, well, who are you going to vote for? They would pick Scott Walker, and he would win these elections. And people would tell us all the time, it's not that I disagree or agree with everything Walker's doing. It's that I know where he stands. And now whatever he tells me he's going to do, he's going to do. I can trust him to be him. And I think Youngkin is definitely benefiting from that as well. And I think Youngkin is benefiting from this visceral reaction to education issues, to grocery costs. Youngkin drove they wanted to talk about Medicaid expansion. They wanted to talk about Trump. They want to talk about all this crap that nobody in Virginia gave a rat's you-know-what about. Youngkin drove the issues. He said, no, I'm going to talk about inflation, food and groceries, not gas, food and groceries he talked about. I'm going to talk about your daughters being raped in gender-neutral bathrooms because these radicals never asked you whether or not you thought it was okay to have, biological males
Playing in girls'
being
bathrooms.
with your biological female child. Like, right. Playing in the girls' bathroom. Thank you, Laura. The girls' locker room, gender-neutral bathrooms, and blah, blah, blah. But I think Youngkin probably could beat Tim Kaine. I do. Fantastic. It's really doing fantastic. Just so that's the answer to that. Let's see what else we got here.
What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, by the way, establishment Republicans hate non-club members so much they'd rather have Fetterman and Shapiro than Oz and Mastriano. Laura grabbed that before.
Yep.
Yeah, without a doubt. Oh, yes. Absolutely. What are your thoughts about the Seymour Hersh story regarding Biden blowing up Nord Stream? We did this on Wednesday, but Noble, I'll tell you, I don't mind revisiting it and talking about it. This was incredibly reckless. They just gave Putin a pretext to actually wage war. It is an act of war, and they did it. Notice in that article, Noble, they were going to do it regardless. They were lying to everybody about the invasion and when, hey, let's play. Let's play. This is, remember this, when you hear him say this, remember that the Seymour Hersh article is telling you that they were using this as an excuse. The so-called invasion. They were using it as an excuse. They were going to do it anyway, and they screwed Germany over. What also I think, before we play this clip, remember Trump was the one who was supposed to be destroying NATO, right? All Trump was doing was asking NATO to pay their fair share. Let's roll this, and then we're going to talk about the difference in the approaches that President Trump versus President Biden took with securing loyalties from NATO members like Germany. And at what cost? Let's roll it, and then we'll talk more about it.
Let me answer the first question first. If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that? Exactly, since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control.
We will, I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
Now, understand, if you're a military man, what he just did right there is absolutely reckless danger. He could have got them all killed. He could have got those divers killed. The Russian patrol of the Black Sea is incredible. I mean, the Baltic Sea, excuse me, is incredible. And they were already in great danger. For this idiot to go to the microphone and blab their plans, as it said in the Hersh article, they were all stunned. They couldn't believe he did it. He also presented them with an opportunity, though, to do it, because now they can say, if Russia invades, that's why we did it. They were going to do it anyway. They're full of crap. So they took it as like a unintended benefit, that they still did that. But understand, they were horrified when they heard the commander-in-chief blow up their... I mean, I can't even imagine back when I was in the Army. I can't even imagine if some stupid asswipe went to the microphone and said, I'm about to send I'm about to send an ODA to go do this. Like, we should have Joe Ken on to talk about this. But Joe, when you were on an ODA, could you imagine if the president blew up your mission before you did it? I'd be like, I don't know if we should do this anymore. Of course, you got to follow orders. You got to do what you got to do. But, oh, my God. The hell is wrong with him? But Trump's position was this. Make America an energy export powerhouse. Energy independent, but also an exporting powerhouse. And first time since FDR, by the way. And make sure that Germans get U.S. gas on the cheap. Drill an AMWAR, pipelines, the Keystone pipelines, the whole 9 yards. And then you can, basically buy Germany's loyalty like that. Biden took a different tact. He decided to blow up their energy source, lie to them about it, all for Ukraine, which they didn't want to support anyway. It's unbelievable. And to say, oh, well, we got them on board in the end anyway. Well, you got them on board by lying to them. Now you've damaged the relationship. Because believe me, the difference here is that Trump understands we are in an international state of anarchy. This is the modern liberal nation state order. And nation states pursue their own interests. And they enter into security competitions, even allies. Often you'll come together and build what are coalitions. And you will balance against other coalitions. peoplespundit.com, peoplespundit.locals.com, book club, 3 p.m. Sunday, Eastern Standard Time. He put all that at risk, while Trump, very different take. Let's make NATO stronger. Let's put them relying on us for fuel, especially Germany, which is the strongest nation in NATO. Let's get real. If we ever let Germany, if we ever turn them loose, which the world is afraid to do because of World War I and World War II, if we ever did, they have the power to become, they have the, I would say, the potential, the economic and population, their latent power potential is enormous. Make them happy, keep them loyal, make NATO stronger. And don't, by the way, risk starting World War III over a non-NATO member. He committed an act of war, and he put us at risk for a non-NATO member. Anyway, so there we are. There you have it. Very different takes. If you're a realist like I am and not a friggin' neocon or neoliberal, this is a no-brainer. Trump had the better approach. He had the best approach. And NATO was paying their fair share. Does Youngkin's approval win the GOP both chambers? You know they slipped. Republicans slipped by losing that special election in the Senate for the Senate. I don't know that Youngkin's approval helps them at all when he's not on the ticket. Governors of Virginia only serve one term. If Youngkin was to run for Senate, it would be during a different cycle anyway. So they'll never get the benefit of Youngkin's popularity at this point. Damn, these sex bots. I know. I don't understand. Blocking the user. Laura, come on. Our viewers are being bombarded by porno bots on YouTube. All right, so yeah, that was a really good question though. How Nordstrom worked. We are running out of time, but before we do, I want to play this clip, and then we'll talk about this too. And I'll try to get to a few more questions here. I want to just point this out because of everything the media said about January 6th, about everything the Justice Department has tried to charge people with. This was a jaw-dropping moment in the hearing yesterday.
Tone here. Do you agree that the attack on the Capitol on January 6th was an act of domestic terrorism?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Do you agree the attack on the Capitol on January 6th was an act of domestic terrorism?
I don't think I'm in a position to judge that. It was an act of lawlessness. There was a lot of property destroyed.
You're here as an expert,
and there were
sir.
crimes committed
based on your experience.
By trespassing. I don't know if that rises to the level of terrorism, quite frankly.
Holy crap. And if that's true, then what the hell is the FBI doing? Pursuing citizens like they're terrorists? They're one step away from awalakiing some of us. And here you have Tom Baker saying, under oath, the Democrat attempting, obviously, to get him to say it's terrorism. And him saying it's an act of lawlessness. It's a friggin' protest that got out of hand. A lot of the ditch Trump crowd thinks that Trump gets turnout, but also drives up Dem turnout. They think Dem turnout will be depressed without Trump. And a DeSantis or Youngkin could even flip Virginia. What are your thoughts on this? My thoughts on flipping Virginia is a pipe dream at this moment. All right, I'm not saying Virginia is not winnable back for Republicans. It's just not winnable back right now. Because somebody does good in a governor's election in an off cycle does not mean they can carry the state. We've been here and done this over and over again. Had Bob McDonnell ran for president, it doesn't mean he would have won Virginia because he won it by 18 points. Republicans still lost Virginia after Bob McDonnell won it by 18 points, not 1.4 or 2 points, 18 or something like that. DeSantis is a Sun Belt governor. It has nothing to do with Virginia. They're very different now. Virginia is not the old Dominion anymore. It's the new Dominion on the turnout thing. So there's just no evidence to support that. It's a dream, but there's no evidence to support that. Although I think Youngkin would have a better chance of winning Virginia than I do DeSantis. I do think it's possible. I don't think you should sacrifice the Rust Belt in an attempt to win Virginia. I think that's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. We have researched Trump driving up turnout negatively. The bottom line is without COVID, and the changes, then Trump would have been reelected handily by probably the biggest margin any Republican incumbent has been reelected by since Ronald Reagan. It would have been huge. He probably would have carried Minnesota and New Hampshire and the rest of it. It was the mail-in ballots that did Trump in. The turnout looks to be it's a net benefit still for Republicans with Trump's turnout. But yes, he does drive Democratic turnout up as well, without a doubt. But I think you're not going to get these voters out right now without Trump. I think it's very obvious. We've been here, we've seen it now, and it's a problem for Republicans. We've got special elections. We have the 2022 midterms. The only reason why 2020 was close with the vote by mail infrastructure is because of how much Trump is able to turn out. Look, Macomb. We were just talking to Drew Bourne in Michigan. Look at how badly they did in Macomb County without Trump. Look how badly they did in Monroe without Trump. And yet they still got killed in Oakland. So Oakland is a great example of that counter argument from the ditch Trump crowd that says, oh, yeah, we do so much better with him. You did better in Oakland County without him? No, you didn't. You got crushed. And you lost Macomb. And you lost Monroe. You've seen the locals community gets voter analysis models that others don't get. You've seen Monroe, Macomb in Michigan. There's no registration, so we have to infer. Macomb still has more Democrats than they do Republicans, a lot more. In fact, it's like over 50% inferred Democrat because those voters are being inferred as Democrats because of prior voting behavior, primaries, donations. Yet when they go to the polls and vote for president, they vote for Donald Trump. They are the Reagan Democrats, fast forward decades to the new generation. They're the children of Reagan Democrats. They still vote for Barack Obama. They'll vote for Barack Obama. They'll vote for Gretchen Whitmer. They will not vote for a Democrat against Donald Trump. Very clear. He killed it in Monroe. He carried Macomb again. It was not a fluke, and he carried it significantly. Even though all of those mail-in ballots that we identified that flat out, I'm not going to bring it up. You know where I'm going to say. Kent County, another huge problem. So I think Republicans need to be very careful. You're going to sacrifice winning Wisconsin. You're going to sacrifice winning Michigan, Pennsylvania, even Ohio and Iowa. Ladies and gentlemen, when some of these voters hear about where the money comes from, they recoil. I think Republicans would be very foolish to think Iowa is theirs. Chuck Grassley won it because he won it. He's Chuck Grassley. He does the 99 county strategy. Ernst won it because of why? Because of Trump. So I'm just saying, without him, if they go back to being the party of Mitt Romney, they're going to lose Iowa. Look at how it went in 2018 without Trump in Iowa. Swung left again. It's not Republican. It's Trumplican. Even Ohio could be back to a 2 to 4 point state. It really could. Sherrod Brown beat Jim Renacci, whatever. It's a good question though. So I very much am, of the mind that there are some really dangerous ideas out there, like ditch Trump for Virginia. That's incredibly stupid. And talking about Georgia and Arizona again. We did think Kerry, we know what happened to Kerry Lake. Let's get real. But he still was outperforming her. He was outperforming Abe Hamadeh. He was up there with Kimberly Yee, who actually won. That's how Trump was doing in Arizona in the polling. We polled Kimberly Yee's race too. Trump and Kimberly Yee were basically identical in their support. And then below that was Kerry and Abe. And then below that was like the Blake Masters and what's his name? Secretary of State, Fincham. There were tiers of support for candidates. In Georgia, it was always a close race between Warnock and Walker. Actually, at some point, Warnock had like a 4-point lead, but he did look like he was racing at the end there. And yet, Trump was up by like 10, while Walker had like a 1 to 2 point lead. Trump was up by 10. And again, where was the major difference? He squeezes a little bit more out of rural Georgia. He does. And he wins some of that Al Gore country that used to be Democratic in Georgia in the central and southern parts of the state. But that's not really it. Donald Trump outperformed David Perdue in the Atlanta suburbs. He did. He way outperformed Walker in Fulton County. Look it up. Way outperformed him. And that's where again, some of this comes from you. These non-whites in urban and ex-urban areas where they are willing to vote for Trump but not willing to vote Republican. This is the problem for Republicans. And if you're not going to keep the rural margin that Trump keeps, you got to find it somewhere else. Well, you did better with the 4-year college suburb voter. You damn near tied Democrats with them. If you believe the exit polls, Republicans basically won 40% of the post-grad vote. It wasn't enough. It's not enough. They won working class whites by 30 points. The problem is there weren't enough of them who voted. It wasn't enough. So, at this point, I don't know how much more evidence some of these people need. I really don't. And believe me, I don't know that I want to, I'll just leave that up there. I'll leave that I'll instead of offering my opinion, I'll ask Liz some questions on Monday. All right. So that about gets to most of them here. I'm going to see. Somebody asked about New Hampshire, and I don't see the question, but I remember it in my head. With the demographic changes, do you think New Hampshire will be competitive in 2024? It can be if they have the vote by mail infrastructure that I'm telling everyone they need to have. But they can do this. They can close that gap pretty quickly. Look at how big the margin was for Obama in New Hampshire twice, by the way. And yet Trump damn near won it in 2016. Democrats just did a much better job. Yeah, demographic changes have happened, but Obama was winning it crazy anyway before all of those demographic Massachusetts implants came from across the border. He was winning it by 12 points anyway, 12, 8, 6, whatever. I think it was 8 or 6 the second time around. And then Trump nearly picked it off, even without barely campaigning there. He ended his campaign there, if I remember correctly, I think. When he said the working class is going to strike back tomorrow or something. I think it was New Hampshire. But with harvesting operation in place, then yes, he absolutely it can be won. And look at Sununu. He kills it. He kills it. And Ashton said, I don't understand why Georgia picked the fake pastor over Walker. I'm from the town besides Walker, and he's beloved. Simple, Ashton. That second time around, they abandoned Walker, and he got beat by the ground game. Walker should have won that the first time around. Look how close he was to 50%. He was right there. Remember, Walker finished ahead of Warnock, if I remember correctly. Didn't he? Or he finished maybe 1 point behind after they got done counting the suitcases. Yeah. Walker had no ground game. None. And the money they were providing for him was not money that earns you votes or gets you votes. They were giving him air power to play. So they could later say they helped him. Pathetic. I'm in Ohio, and if it's not Trump, I'm staying home. Stella, believe me, there are millions of you. Millions of you. This is the danger Republicans are in right now. Heed me right now. If it's not Trump, you're losing 20 to 30% of your electorate. I'm telling you. So the question is, yes, there will be 10% of Republicans who won't vote for Donald Trump. Okay, 10% of a smaller electorate, if it's, a 10% of a bigger electorate versus losing damn near a third of Trump's vote. So your electorate, your turnout is going to shrink. So it's either amp turnout up and lose a smaller share, or watch it dwindle and lose 30%. That's the problem Republicans are facing right now. And frankly, why I wish DeSantis would clarify what it is he's doing. Because if Trump and DeSantis make nicey nice, and there's a unity ticket, they're going to win in a landslide. But it does appear DeSantis is going to put a knife between his shoulder blades. I don't like it when people tell me something and then don't. I don't like it when people tell me something. I don't like it when politicians say something to your face and then don't do it. Which is why Mike Pence has lost my respect forever.
Oh, Mike Pence is a joke.
And I am not happy with Mike Pence being raided. It's not because I like Mike Pence. I don't like him at all. But the FBI is totally out of control. And by the way, we had great thanks to our guest Drew Bourne for coming to talk about Michigan. and everything else we did talk about today. But folks, if you missed the first segment, please go back and look at it after this is over, which is about to be now. Please go back and look at it. This agency, this bureau is totally out of control, and I don't think there's any fixing it. What harm will befall us if we get rid of the the Federal Bureau of Investigation? I would argue they do more bad than they ever have done good. I don't care. What are you going to do? You let Bernie Madoff walk free. You let Bernie, like, what is it that you do? You don't stop the Pulse nightclub shooter because you're too busy spying on Donald Trump. What do you do except for terrorize parents and persecute the political enemies of Democrats?
That's what I was going to say, and invade personal.
And invade privacy, violate the Fourth Amendment on a daily basis. Folks, there's stuff they've done you've never even heard of. I remember when I was still the editor of People's Planet Daily, I got approached by a lawyer. He represented like 13 different companies who had contracts with the federal government. The FBI was stealing their intellectual property. They were suing them, but there was like a gag order. Nobody knew about it. It was sealed. And they were trying to leak it to me. And they did leak it to me. I mean, really. But the bottom line is the FBI was using FISA warrants to steal intellectual property. They were lying to the FISA court, which I don't even think cares anymore. They were lying to the FISA court, pretending like these companies who had contracts with the Defense Department, all different contracts with government agencies, somehow they're vetted enough to get contracts. But for some reason, they need to be spied on, like they're dangerous. And this was insane. And Comey was the director at this time, by the way. And they were using the FISA warrants to spy on them and take their intellectual property. Guess what happened once they got it? They canceled the contracts. It would be a miraculous event. The FBI would get what they were looking for, and the Defense Department would like reverse engineer it and then cancel the contracts. It was incredible. These people are totally out of control. Now they just interfere with they just engineer our elections. That's what they're doing. They're election engineering, folks. This is not a democracy if we allow an agency or a bureau or any administrative bureaucracy to exist in these conditions. It's like, I'm telling you, I'm at the point. I'm just saying, put up or shut up. Are you a democracy or are you not? Put up or shut up. I'm not afraid of getting rid of the FBI. I'll take Babyface Nelson and I'll take Babyface Nelson and I'll take John Dillinger any day over Jim Comey. They are not as dangerous as Jim Comey or Robert Mueller or Christopher Wray. Those men are much more dangerous, and that bureau is much more dangerous than those guys will ever be to you or an I. Ever be. It was a reason they were all popular, by the way. Because they were viewed as getting back at the big guy who was screwing you. They were like rock stars.
Robin Hoods.
They were Robin Hoods. They have got to go. Owen, 100%. We need to abolish these agencies. They're corrosive to self-government. Absolutely. Big mistake, even ever giving them a charter. They got to go. Yeah, they're blackmailing J. Locke or J.K. Locke. He or she is right on point. They're at Pence's house to blackmail him. Because if Pence is a legitimate candidate, they're going to want something on him. That is what they're doing. The Federal Bureau of Imperialism. I love it. They got to go. I'm not scared to not have them anymore. I'll protect myself from terrorists. They don't stop. Mm-hmm. I'll protect myself and my family if there's a bank robber.
The border and leave the rest
you want to do something, go sit your ass at the border. I mean, they don't even do the one function, the one legitimate role government has to serve. They don't even do. This whole thing is it's totally. All right. With that in mind, it's 2:15. I went a little bit over, but I wanted to get to that last question. Don't forget, if you like the videos, share them far and wide. Subscribe on Rumble. All right, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube and you don't. But I definitely have to ask you to go ahead and sign up on Rumble and subscribe because look at what we talked about today. We don't need an FBI. Like, how long you think you're going to tolerate that for? All right. Couldn't do the video on Locals yesterday, but if you're a member of Locals or a supporter on Locals, go check out what we did yesterday covering a medical study, more medical misinformation That is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Go check that video out. And of course, if you are subscribing on YouTube, hit that notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. Rumble will let you know, period. So that's that. Go ahead and just subscribe on Rumble. And while you're there, Rumble makes it very easy. There's a button right down here that says join locals. Sign up to locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. And we will see, for those of you who are on locals, we will see you at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday, okay? Book club. All right, kids are home from a half day. Gotta bounce. All the best. Deuces. Deuces. I don't know about you folks, but I'm hungry. It's lunchtime. See you all. Have a safe weekend.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna